Yeah, so with that, I'll call our audit committee meeting to order. And I know Kristen had sent out the agenda earlier. First on the agenda was to review and accept the minutes from the October 14th meeting, which was last month. And then second on, which is the main focus, is to review the extra class financial statements with the year ending June of 20. And then also the corrective action plan that goes along with it. Yeah, so basically just what I noted in there too, and I'll let Kristen explain more if she wants to, but just the audit of the extra class finances, what we could see is we found just two minor deficiencies that were listed there. One having to do with the girls basketball club, and the other having to do with the communication club. And Kristen, I don't know if you had more details to add to that, or if we need to put that out there. But
Susan was pretty good about explaining the two issues. This is her corrective action plan, which the board would accept. I was wondering what the equipment was, but she did put in there that it was the rebounding machine. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So the two deficiencies are very minor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it looked like the other one was just just because the club was inactive, and that was due to COVID, right? So they didn't have any financial statement to post this year. So that doesn't even seem like a deficiency to me, but I guess they just have to note that. And I guess that if they weren't going to be active, then they would just consider that for the future then, right? Whether you wanted to close the club or
Yes, if they weren't busy, if they had no activity this year, then we definitely would have to make a decision about that.
Right. And then it had the corrective action built into with the first one. It looked like it was just making the payments to pay off this just the balance that they had. So it's pretty straightforward with the girls club. Yeah.
So the athletic club, the booster club, they donate money to each team every year. So the softball, basketball club takes that money every year and pays off the other groups that they owe. So it'll take a while, but they're making payments annually.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So did anyone have any issues or anything that they saw in there that we needed to clarify any further? I mean, it looks pretty straightforward. It's I don't think there was much more than what was listed. So anyone have any other concerns or issues, questions?
I'm good.
No? Yeah, good. So with that, what we will do is, as the audit committee, we will recommend to the board at the meeting that they accept these financial statements and the plan, and we'll move forward from there. So if there's nothing else for the good of the order, and Kristen, I don't know if you had anything else, but we can keep this short and sweet.
Yep, no, I'm good.
Okay. With that, I'll adjourn our audit committee meeting, and I'll turn it over to you, Rodney.
All right, thanks, Jim. Okay, I'll call the regular board meeting to order, and I'll suspend the pledge, seeing that we're all away right now until we figure out a better way of doing that. So first up, agenda changes. I don't believe we have any. Do we have we have no executive session. We don't need one.
Okay. Nope, there are no agenda changes and no executive session. I will just briefly remind people that we are being recorded for the audit committee meeting as well as for this Board of Education meeting, and that should be in the upper left-hand corner. You should see that we're being recorded.
Okay. All right. Moving on to guest recognition. Jim, do we have any guests? No? Okay. If we see someone come on, we'll catch them at the next one. All right. I will take items 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's one motion. If someone would like to make that.
I'll make it.
Bob, have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Beth. So what I'm doing is looking at you, looking for a thumbs up, shaking a head. Karen, I know you know about doing this because we've been doing it in Rotary right along. So, and if I cut you off real quick, just raise your hand and tell me to shut up, and you'll be going. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Opposed? Not opposed. Pass 5-0.
Rodney, would you mind if I just mentioned something quickly about the appointments for the drama productions? I
Sure.
just I think it's important for the board to know that the adults who usually work with the drama department and the musical are being really creative and trying to create some opportunities for students who may not necessarily fit the athletic track where we're up and running. So many of these students the teachers are just trying to find a way to keep them connected and keep them involved, and they're thinking very creatively about what they might be able to do. And so Ryan and Jen have been working pretty tirelessly with those advisors, going over safety protocols and adjusting to make sure that the distances are being preserved and fielding their questions. So it's just they're working hard. And I do want to point out that these are the positions that were appointed. We also did not appoint a couple of those stipend positions where we didn't feel like it would be good use of funds, and Stephanie and Cynthia in particular were really helpful in terms of those appointments. So we're not appointing about $2,000 worth of stipends that are typically associated with the dramas and the drama performances and musical. Ryan and Jen, do you want to add anything from your perspective on those? You don't have to. You can give a thumbs up if you're good. Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't ask if anybody had any questions or any things on any of those items. I didn't realize that. So, okay, moving on to item 8, items for board discussion or adoption. There's an audit committee earlier this evening. Jim, you have an update for us?
Yeah, we just met a short time ago with the audit committee, and the primary agenda item was the review of the extra class audit, which was the extra class financial statements year ending June 30th of 20. And basically there were just 2 minor deficiencies that we discussed that were noted in the audit process. The corrective action plan is very clear, and they're working to address these minor deficiencies. So it's, we're moving forward with that. So basically the audit committee is recommending to the Board of Education that we accept the extra class financial audit results.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I will entertain a motion to approve the corrective action plan.
I'll make it.
Bob, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Karen? Any discussion or questions? Oh, someone does. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed 5-0. Moving on to acceptance of the 2020 tax collectors report. Everybody have an opportunity to look at that. I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll move.
Beth?
I'll make it.
Jim?
I'll second.
Jim? Any discussion or questions? Anybody got any comments on that, Kristen? Is this typical 90-some-8% or whatever?
Yeah, yep, it's actually a little bit higher than the normal, which is surprising.
Okay.
I think the lowest I can remember is like 92 or 93% collected.
So that's good news. Anybody else have any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Nope. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passed 5-0. Item D is approval of the budget calendar. I have a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll move.
Jim? Karen, second?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on the budget calendar?
No.
Good.
Good.
All those in favor say aye.
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 1, 2, 3, 4, opposed? Passed 5-0. Item E, approval, ratification of the final tentative agreement with the ATA. At the last meetings and stuff, Ryan had gone through that thoroughly and what we're agreeing to. So this is just approving that agreement. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make
I'll
it.
make it.
All right, I heard Bob first. Beth, you seconded?
You bet.
Okay. All right, any discussion or questions on that? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Pass 5-0. Item F. This is approval of request for ACS to participate through Livonia Central School District as a team of one / incomplete team in the sport of alpine skiing. I think we had done this in previous years, but do I have a motion to approve that and we can discuss it afterwards here?
I'll make a motion.
Was that Karen?
Yep.
Yep.
Do I have a second? Beth? I seen a hand at a time. All right. Does everybody understand it or need to have some discussion? We can have Ryan tell you a little bit. I don't know, Karen, if you're familiar with like a team of one, how we work those things.
The team of one or incomplete team would be where we have a student who's interested in doing a particular sport, but we may not offer that sport. So we can reach out to some of our colleagues and see if they're willing to take our student and coach our student, but our student would be competing for Avon. So, but Livonia is agreeing to coach our student and have us affiliated with them for the sake of that particular sport. We do not transport the student in this case. So just it's a chance to give one of our students who might have a unique desire a chance to participate in something that they like.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passed 5-0.
I just want to briefly thank Livonia publicly for being willing to host. I mean, these are challenging times and some people are finding ways to limit some things and, and rightfully so, like every district's dealing with their own things. So they wouldn't have to do this. So I just appreciate their willingness to support our student.
Okay. Item G is discussion. This is the first reading of policy 8340 instructional material. In this case, Karen, for your information, our policies, there has to be a first reading and a second reading before it can be approved. First reading is, this may be the first time you're reading, but it's the first time publicly that we're bringing it up. At the next meeting, we'll discuss if you see any changes or any questions or so on that you have on that. The time to bring those up is before the second reading. If those changes are brought into the second reading, then we would approve afterwards. So I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to read this one here first, but if you have any questions on that, or if this is a yearly one, if there any major changes?
There are not major changes. This connects to our one-to-one initiative. We made the decision last spring to accelerate the deployment of the devices to students and taking them home. It's really, the timing was great in terms of those devices coming in, all the work that the district had done for one-to-one. They happened to land in our hands about 3 weeks before COVID-19 hit. So we had the devices and we're able to send them with students. We had some lengthy discussions about the role of insurance and whether or not to require insurance and before students could take the devices home. And we ended up erring on the side of the insurance is available to families, but we did not require it as part of taking the devices home. And it's not a decision that's set in stone. It's something that we can continue to monitor based on how much damage we end up having to repair. And there will be damage that's accidental damage. And then, on occasion, there may be damage that is purposeful or just maybe not even purposeful, but just neglect or mistreatment of the devices. So we're going to keep tracking that. And what the change in the policy just makes a little bit more clear for us. We were fine anyway, but it just makes it a little bit more clear that these computing devices are covered under the policy for lost or damaged or stolen goods.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on it initially? Like I say, the next meeting we'll have the second reading and approve if no changes. Okay. Moving on to our COVID-19 update. We've been getting them quite frequently, more frequently we probably want them, but we'll let Ryan go ahead and give us some more information.
Yeah, sounds good. I just, in regards to the last policy, I just want to thank Jim and Kristen for putting their heads together to come up with the changes that we needed there to tighten up that policy. So in regards to the COVID-19 update, it was a busy weekend. We did have a student and a staff positive over the weekend. After working through the contact tracing, we've been able to make the adjustments that we need. Thankfully, one of our nurses who was not feeling well did test negative today. So that's very appreciative for that development. So in regards to COVID-19, we had planned to go to remote instruction on the 30th of November, which is the Monday coming out of the break, and December 1st coming out of the break. With numbers doing what they're doing, I've been in touch with the region and trying to learn a little bit more about how each district is handling this. As you know, some districts chose to be remote today and tomorrow, and will also be remote after the break. The one change that emerged today is we are going to allow staff members to work from home or work from school on those days. So it's a matter of what is, in the spring, we did not allow people to work from school. We will allow people to work from school, but we're also allowing people to work from home with the idea that it's wherever they think they can do the best job is where we want them to be. But we also are trying to minimize a little bit more of the traffic in the building. So that was an additional accommodation that resulted today. So I covered that. We continue to work to try to build capacity within our nursing staff. I really want to thank the board again for allowing us to hire the part-time temporary nurse, Kim Brzee, who's been working with us for the last couple of months. It's really helped to lighten the load in some ways. The challenge that we have with Kim is that her schedule, she's primarily at a hospital, so her schedule isn't as predictable as we would like it to be in terms of school. So Kristen and Katie continued to look for some other options for augmenting our nursing capacity, whether it's bringing in some of our substitutes or Kristen's looking into a contract nursing service that would allow us to add some predictable expense. It wouldn't be some predictable service. The idea is that it would not be much more than what we're prepared to pay already, but it just might help us to make it a little bit more predictable. So instead of whenever Kim can make it into work like she did on short notice today, but it would be something we could provide some predictable service to be, for instance, every Tuesday, Thursday morning, so that Nicole and Katie and Rhonda would know exactly when their support. So I just wanted to keep that on the radar, that we continue to look to try to round out that service a little bit. But really, I wanted to thank you for allowing us to move in that direction to begin with, because it's paid huge dividends already. Can I answer any questions for you about our nursing capacity? Okay, then the last thing I want to chat about as it relates to COVID-19 actually goes back to the team of one concept. Another sport that we've had an incomplete team or a team of one for has been indoor track over the last 3 or 4 years. When I've been working with Andy, we've had 4 or 5 students participate in indoor track affiliated with Rush Henrietta. So I want to make sure that the board knows there's a little bit of buzz around indoor track coming from a couple of different areas. First, that it's considered a lower risk sport. So when New York State Public High School Athletic Association said that sports could move forward, the original date for indoor track was the 30th of November, whereas the higher risk sports were pushed until January 4th. So as soon as that announcement was made, there was a little bit of a buzz about indoor track because of 2 primary challenges. One is, in some schools, it's a very large team, and there's no high school really has a place for those teams to practice other than the hallways in the school. So there's concern about how would you ensure distancing when, in some cases, 30 or 40 kids are running in the hallways. So there was concern about that. Like, could you really be safe? And therefore, for instance, Livingston County Health Department and Dr. Flenders with the Livingston County Health Department expressed some concerns that they just didn't think that that was a low-risk sport. The second challenge with indoor track was, at the time, none of the colleges that typically host indoor track were willing to host high school indoor track because they tend to, if you've ever been to an indoor track meet, they tend to be pretty big meets with lots of schools and lots of kids on the teams all in one place. So the colleges, most of the colleges did not want to take that risk of inviting those high schoolers into play. So there was risk, there was concern about the risk of the sport. There was concern that the sport didn't have a place to go anyway. Since that time, a couple of things have happened. Section 5 has moved indoor track back to a later start date, so we don't have to make any decision right now. And Houghton College has some availability to host indoor track meets, as well as the Pinnacle facility in Victor. So where that comes back to Avon, with all of that background at play, we reached out to Dr. Collins. He also has some concerns about indoor track, depending on the distancing and the venue and the size of the teams. The students who were a part of our indoor track team have aged out. Andy has not fielded any interest this year, just coming his way, but we also haven't offered it. So we have another, we could wait for another board meeting. A couple of ideas would be to just not do the incomplete team for indoor track this year because of the concerns from our school physician, the health department, and the medical director at the health department. Would be one option. We're not obligated to offer it, but that may take an opportunity away from a student. That'd be one option. The other would be to just wait and see what happens, because there's still some concern or question as to whether or not the indoor track season will be able to fly anyway, based on the number of teams and the limited venues willing to host. So I wanted to talk about indoor track, to put it on your radar that might be a decision that the board would need to make to not allow for the team of one or the incomplete team this year. But I think there's some more information to evolve, and I'll come back to you with a recommendation when Andy and I can monitor the situation a little bit more.
Just to clarify, there's no interest at this time, or there is one?
We don't have any interest at this time that somebody's gone to Andy and spoken for themselves that they're interested in it and asked, are we doing it this year? We also haven't advertised it, so there's no sort of natural organic interest developing right now, as there had been in the years past.
Other questions?
Brian, was there anything said about masks being worn during indoor track?
Yeah, masks would be expected to be worn. Different than cross country, they were able to remove the mask because they were outdoors after, I think it was either the quarter or half mile, they were able to pull the mask down, but it's because they were outdoors, and it's usually that long before the pack sort of thins out. But indoors, they would be expected to wear the masks.
Ryan, you said there's no interest. Is there any of the runners that ran last year still in school?
According to Andy, they've graduated, but we have not gone through the roster from last year. I simply asked, and that's what he told me.
And Andy should know. I just couldn't remember. I know we had 4 or 5 previous years, but they may have been all seniors last year. I don't remember. But yeah. Other comments or thoughts?
Seems like the wait and see would be a reasonable approach, since we don't have anyone signed up. So if no one does come forward saying they don't want to, then we don't have to say you can't, and that we're closing that down. But again, obviously the safety, we would have to consider that. But I would propose we just wait then, if we have anyone come forward that wants to do it. Just my thought.
Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll wait to hear from you, Ryan.
Great, sounds good. Thank you.
Other COVID-19 updates or any questions on COVID-19? If not, we get to move into our strategic plan discussion. So back over to Ryan.
Alrighty, strategic planning is rolling along nicely. The student surveys were out as of Friday afternoon. We had 631 student responses, and that is all students in grades, just about all students in grades 4 through 12, which was our target population. In regards to parents, we had 198 individual parent responses returned as of Friday afternoon. We took a look back at the legacy data. We had about 150 to 160 with the legacy data. And that also, in the legacy data, included parents who might be employees of the district also, whereas they're separated out this time around. So getting more than 200 is probably a pretty good effort, I would think, at this point. We have 107 instructional surveys and 32 non-instructional surveys. And a number of other people have done interviews. So based on that, we're in pretty reasonable shape there. It's a pretty good representation. There were 14 interviews completed as of this afternoon, with one more interview to do tomorrow morning. The next step is the focus groups. As of this afternoon, we have 7 people interested in the focus groups, and that's based on the penny saver advertising and me sending it being posted on our website and me sending out via the school messenger. It's also going to be sent through Rotary and the Lions Club, and I'm going to look into possibly sending it to the chamber. From there, we could also go back and continue to recruit the folks who were involved with the legacy project. Nicole's original idea was 2 separate focus groups of 8 to 10. So I think we'll be able to get there. And then from there, she will have all the data that she needs after the focus groups on the 2nd and 3rd. She'll take the next week and a half or 2 weeks to produce a report. And she says that she will have that back to us before the December break. What questions can I answer for you on the status of the strategic planning update?
I did have mine the other day, and it went quite well. I was able to get on with the link I had, so
good.
It worked out better.
Great.
You answered my question as like what for the focus groups, what was she hoping to get? And so as you just said, 8 to 10 with each group, and hopefully those other outreaches will produce some more interest.
Any other comments? Okay, we're moving on to reports. President's report. My wife and I are both very sad to say that after 15 years of Christmas parties in a row, with the current situation that we have, we don't want to take any risk and have any of you guys come in and have something happen. So I'm hopefully that next year will be bigger and better and we're able to get back together again. But I'm going to have to cancel that. The other thing is stand by at your doorstops. I have Christmas cards for everyone's signature. I just got them today, so I will get them signed tomorrow and I'll pass them on to the board members. After that, the last board member will get them to the school for the administrators. So be looking for them. Kristen, I have information from stuff for you. Ryan's got for you on your desk. So. All right, that's it for me. Legislative, Beth.
So last week I attended the Genesee Valley School Board Association. I appreciate some of the information that I got because we were talking about mental health, and Sherry, who is a certified school social worker and runs the employee assistance program. She did a presentation. It was virtual, and she was talking about that. Obviously, it is. Educators and staff are really struggling. One of the groups that she was most concerned about is our school counselors. And one of the other things, and I know that we as a district participate in that program, but one of the things that she talked about was not many administrators utilize the program. And yet that's probably a group that is feeling the stress as well. I was able to share some of the things that we're doing in our district, but one thing that came up was some strategies. And one of the things that Sherry shared was continuously expressing appreciation and praise for staff. Even if it made me think of, and Jen, I don't know if you do it in your building, but I know Rob does, the check-in, check-out that we do with students, and maybe something like that with staff. She also suggested, and I don't know how you would do that. That'd be up to principals. Subtract as many duties as you can from their plate. So if it's not essential, or, you're committee wise, you're not meeting as often, or things like that, and just managing expectations. So that got me thinking to see if, as a board, and Dr. Brichetti, I don't know if this is the place to talk about it, is what could we do as a board to express our appreciation both to our staff and to our administrative and leadership team. I did briefly talk to Ryan this morning about that. And I know we have teacher appreciation in the spring, but I think that it's important that we come up with a couple of things and brainstorm as a board of things that we could do or say, or just to let people know that, we see them, we hear them, we appreciate them. Everybody is, they're innovating, they're adapting, they're doing things they never thought they would ever be doing. And they're doing it with grace. They're doing it with full-on commitment. It's taking an extraordinary amount of time and effort. And, we're fortunate that we have such a talented group of educators and administrators. But we don't want them to think that, obviously we don't take them for granted. So I just thought that was important. There's two other areas. Kevin McDonald spoke about the COVID impact in regards to districts, but to be honest, Dr. Brichetti talked to us about it at our last board meeting. So it was the same thing that Ryan had shared with us that came from the Department of Health in New York State, and the testing if schools get a certain percent and if they're yellow or orange, that kind of thing. And then the last part with Pat Burke, they said to save the date January 30th. They're looking to have their legislative leadership day. And just saying, in the meantime, what are issues that we should bring forward? They're not quite sure how that's going to, they're also going to present the Al Hawk Award at that time as well. So currently they don't know if they're doing, they don't have a host spot, so it could just be done with Zoom. And so they're, working on that. So that was the big thing, January 30th. Yep. And then seeing what can we do as a board just to let our teachers and administrators know how much we appreciate and how grateful we are for the work that they're doing. I did come up with this teacher self-care bingo that I found. I thought it was kind of funny, I don't know how we would do it, but again, I found some, uplifting videos, looking at teachers as heroes. So just trying to think of some things, ways, or we can communicate to them. So thoughts on that?
I would love to see the self-care bingo. That sounds cool.
Yeah. So again, I don't know from the administrators, how the counselors are doing. They were particular about that, but obviously, all staff are. So hopefully, again, Sherry was just letting them know that we have that service, and I would imagine either the colleagues of the people that are in need of support would, talk to colleagues or talk to their building principal, but maybe just at least letting people know that the EAP program is available, because they talked about different kinds of stresses, behavioral and physical and emotional, and it can present itself in lots of different ways. So that's what I have on that.
Beth, thanks for attending that and for passing it along and for starting the conversation with us. I think it's a really important conversation. We just talked about it a little bit this morning as a leadership team when, one of our administrators, that he shall remain nameless, talked about being approached from a teacher who was maybe making what's on the surface seem like a questionable call to stay home because of some exposures and the need to, I'm joking here. So like, let me phrase that. I'm joking a little bit because, when the culture used to be, if you're not feeling well, suck it up, get to school, you can get through the day, don't leave us shorthanded. And now that's probably the worst decision that somebody can make is to be pressured into some stigma because of some stigma to come to school and then put everybody at risk. So we were just talking about that today. I started to make a joke, and it's not a joke matter, and I can make fun of Rob some other time. But but that's one of the challenges is like, what do people really need right now? And it's permission to make those decisions and to trust their instincts, I think is a big part of it. I know we've been trying to keep people on our radar, like with our school nurses, with the folks, the classroom teachers who on a moment's notice have one more student going remote, or Rob over the weekend fielding a few different phone calls and then he himself running into school to pull Chromebooks and chargers so that the class would be ready to go this morning with very little interruption. And the teacher, helping us with the contact tracing investigation and then flipping right into, okay, I've got till 9 o'clock Monday morning to come up with some lesson plans for what's now going to be remote lessons instead of in person. So I feel like I'm going on a rant here, so I will defer, but I thank you for bringing it up, Beth. I think there probably are some neat things that we can do that acknowledges that this really kind of stinks, but not, we also have to set a tone of stiffening the upper lip sometimes and moving forward. But, I don't think we can err on the side of doing either one of those two things all the time, because it would not validate what people are really feeling. But at some point we have to keep moving too. So I'm sorry, I've been talking for a long time. Other administrators, what are you thinking? I know we're doing some things with circles, et cetera.
I think that's very well said, Ryan. But you started talking a month and a half ago about some of the same things that Beth is talking about. And so we've been able to, over the past month and a half, give some of those little breaks. It was a couple of weeks ago now, but I went outside onto the bus loop as the kids were getting on the bus. It was one of those warm, beautiful days. And the staff had to remain in school for another 45 minutes. And thinking about what Ryan had shared, I got on the announcements and told staff, hey, it's a beautiful day out. If you can get out right away, you should go home and spend extra time with your family. And I think little things like that go a long way. Mm-hmm. The 45 minutes, I can tell you, staff on a regular basis go beyond 45 minutes on a regular day of work. So, but it's a nice little thing that you can offer to people that they really appreciate. So Ryan, you started about it easily 2 months ago about just making sure we're on the lookout to give people a pat on the back and a break where we can.
Yeah. And I walked away with feeling like, and I think that's where it makes the most difference, Rob, is at your building level. And then, I know as a board, we do the Christmas cards, and I know we give them something Teacher Appreciation Week in the spring, but I would like us to see as a board say to staff, we know what you're doing. We are so proud of you. What you're doing for your classroom and your school community is unprecedented. And we want, we celebrate you. Because I don't think, it's probably not too often that as a board, we do that. And just little things. I did actually mail to all of you today, a note from myself, that you'll get in the mail. Because I believe in that written word, something that people can reread, or video that they can go back to and just be inspired by, or feel like Holly Mullen was the one that talked about that emotional resilience, and it might just last for a couple of minutes, but it's just, I don't know, I think whatever we can come up with, so as a board. So you guys think about that too. So I'm glad, as you said, Rob, that Ryan you guys have been talking about it for months. We have pieces in place that maybe a lot of other districts don't. And so we're fortunate in that regard. Whatever we
Beth, thanks for bringing that up. Just the fact that it's on your mind, I think, says a lot about the board's commitment to all of us as a faculty and staff as we're trying to get through all of this. So I think that acknowledgement from people who know how hard we're working is important. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Now we can.
Can't hear me?
Now we can. Now we can't.
Can anybody hear anybody but
Now we
myself now? So, okay.
Yes.
Oh, maybe. You still hear me? Can you still hear me? Now I can't hear anybody.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Having a lot of trouble here.
We see you, Rodney.
You want to come over here, Rodney?
Click.
You want to come over and I'll mask up in my office, Rodney?
Can you hear me? No.
Yes.
Rodney, I can be there. I could be there in 4
Okay.
minutes. I'm on my way.
4
All right,
minutes.
can you hear me now? I think I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're better.
All right. So we'll move on to, I just lost the video here. So we'll move on to the reports from the administrators. Does anybody have any questions for the administrators? Like I can't see you, so you have to speak up.
This is Beth. I just had a quick question, only because I don't know what it means. For Jackie, skilled nursing facility for a student in the 15 minutes in a classroom. It was something I've seen before.
So there are some children that have some significant medical needs that require, the SNS stands for skilled nursing services. And so at minimum, that can be provided 15 minutes a day. That could be for a child that has asthma, to needing medication, to having like a G-tube and has to be fed.
Okay.
Yeah. So that
Great.
what you saw was a recent student where we made a change to that service.
Gotcha.
I got to go pour my pasta water out. I'll be right back.
No. Not working.
Hey, Jen.
I have a quick question. In the spring, did you have to do virtual parent conferences in the spring as well?
Rob,
Parent teacher conference.
you on that one?
Yeah.
I think we were able to get majority of them in person, but Rob had the bulk of those conferences K through 4.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, but I think we got the 2 conference dates in before the 16th. So we were done. But you said that and I'm like, oh my gosh, do we have parent conferences? It's kind of a blur, but I'm almost certain that we got that in before we actually went out for the spring.
So I guess I'm just wondering, are we reaching all the parents and like the parents that are going to want to do conferences in virtual? I mean, do they have the ability? Do they have the connectivity? So if they do need to talk with.
Well, with the students' Chromebooks now, they would. But I also let teachers know that if a parent really wanted to come in and meet in person, we could make arrangements and still do that safely. But it wouldn't be something that we would be doing for all of the parents of the students.
Yeah, understandable. Okay.
Anybody else? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
Rodney.
Any other questions for any of the administrators?
Great report. Virtually unstoppable.
That was cool. I like that too.
Well, I have to say
Does
something.
any of the administrators have any questions or any
Looks like
additional
Bob.
information they want to present?
I think Bob was going to ask a question.
Not a question, but just to praise with the girls soccer Section 5 win. That was great. And with Tony Patty getting his Amen. I
Lost
listed.
it.
That was pretty good. Coach of the year. That was well deserved.
Yep. The coaches and the athletes put in a ton of time. So I'm very happy for the season that they had. Very happy they had a season and for the season that they had.
Okay, I'm back. All right. Ryan, do you have anything more for the superintendent's report?
Just one brief, kind of late breaking Friday afternoon. I didn't get a chance to put it into the report, but Maria Cox, who was a second shift cleaner with us, was awarded U.S. citizenship at the beginning of last week.
Wow.
So on Friday, it just happened to be a nice day for November. Nancy Mullen made some cupcakes in the kitchen, and so we had some little USA cupcakes and had a ceremony by the flagpole to congratulate her. And she said she was relieved. She cried, and she said she was so happy. And she thought when Mr. LeGroux called her in early, she was getting in trouble for something. So, but yeah, she just expressed her thanks and her gratitude. And she's really an interesting person, having been to Kuwait and also Turkey before coming to the United States. She's just so happy to be here and so happy to have her citizenship. So. And of course, Maya made the arrangements to pull everything together to have that little celebration, but it meant a lot to her, and she returned a thank you note to us today. So it's kind of neat,
Yeah.
I heard when in a previous district, one of the ESL teachers would tell stories about the students and what they had come, and it was just kind of to bring their experiences off the page and into the open a little bit. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, if you're ever in the hallway near one of these students, you're 12 or 15 feet away from an amazing story. And that's just how I felt after listening to some of Maria's experiences and what it meant to her to become a U.S. citizen. So really kind of neat and inspiring.
Yep. Does anybody have any other questions for Ryan? Anything? Seeing none, we'll move on to the roundtable. Beth, anything for us? Oh. Karen?
She's muted.
I just want to thank everyone for taking the time last Wednesday and meeting with me. It was not as overwhelming as I thought, and I appreciated meeting with you and being welcomed. And I feel better about reaching out if I do have any extra questions or concerns. So I thank you. And I did leave that day. Kirk asked me, as I met him in the parking lot for the soccer game because we were running late, how it went. And all I could say was that I was really excited. It's a great group. As I told Ryan, you're very dedicated and the group works well together. So I'm excited to be part of the board.
Thank you. And as a team, we need to explain our acronyms and not take them for granted.
All right. Okay, thanks, Karen. Bob?
I'm all set.
Just set. Jim?
I am good also.
Okay. Our future board meeting, we have one meeting in the month of December, and that'll be on the 14th. It leads us into our last guest recognition. I do not believe we have any guests on. No, we don't. So in your packet, you have the information, utility reports, etc. And if there's nothing more for the meeting, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead, Karen.
I'll make that.
Beth made the motion. Do I have a second? Okay, Karen.
I will second.
All those in
Right.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you
Aye.
all. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Jim, for fixing me up again.